Hey, what's up, everybody? It's me, Danae, and I'm here with a message for you. A little bit off center. What's going on, everybody? It's January 7th, Wednesday, 2026. Hope you are doing amazing. Just jumping in to catch the vibes really quickly. I already cut these cards multiple times, but for your viewing pleasure, here you are. I hope all is well. I think I kind of said that. I hope you are well. I said I hope you're doing amazing, and I do. We are officially 1 week into the first 1 week into 2026. That fast. We are on day number 7. So I hope it's so far so good for you. I did have a bit of a preview message out. It was a little bit of a mixed bag, but I'll lead with what I thought was most positive, because I'm sure there could always be room for the other aspect to slide in at another time. But I saw something about love bombing, and the message was be prepared to be love bombed. For the most part, given that yes, love bombing has a negative connotation associated with narcissistic abuse and narcissistic characteristics. However, this was not that type of love bombing. It was the type of love bombing where the part that is, I guess, a bit of a challenge to manage, dare I say overwhelming, is the fact that not only is it so good, so impactful, whatever form this bombing is coming through, and I'll get to that in a minute, but it's also proven itself almost upon contact or impact to be authentic and trustworthy. So it's not the type of love bombing where it immediately almost puts you on alert or on guard, like, what do you want from me, or why is this happening, or is this too good to be true, or what are these sweet nothings for? Like, what's the ulterior motive here, or what's the long game, or whatever. It's not given that. It's given something where it's like the bombing aspect is just because of the frequency and magnitude of the impact, where such good things are happening, or it could be a multitude of things happening. I think it's more of that than anything, like just goodness coming from all aspects of your life, like good news over here, a big break over here, a windfall here, a lucky chance over here, like something pulling through that you didn't expect over here, an opportunity that comes up out of nowhere over here. Relationships are going, almost uncomfortably well. Sailing is unusually smooth, like things of that nature. I kind of got lost in the goodness, but basically I think what I was trying to get to is that it's happening at such a pace and at a magnitude that it's unusual, to the senses to be experiencing so much, let's say, bliss at one time, joy, perhaps happiness, contentment at one time. But like I said, it's not the type where the overwhelm is on account of wanting to accept, but somehow feeling like you should be guarded or skeptical, or that something may not be so great for you after all. It's like as soon as it is rendered or dispersed, dispensed, is as soon as there is also this sense of ease and contentment and like almost a peace with accepting it. So maybe that's a telltale sign there. You know, if it's something that's causing you way too much anxiety to accept, to settle with, it could be a two-way cause for consideration. You know, a check-in again with your level of worthiness and deservingness. You know, why would I reject something? Is this something that I've been calling in, or that I've wanted, or I've uttered in prayer or consideration or declaration at a time? And then consider why then would you repel or reject its presence. Discernment always, for sure, but sometimes it could be a matter of a quick readjustment in your perception, maybe even an adjustment of levels of almost like trauma reaction by way of disappointments in the past. But I would say, generally speaking, there should be a sense of contentment with this exchange, whether it's a proposition from a person, a gift, again, a windfall, an unusual occurrence, a stroke of luck, an opportunity, something accelerating seemingly, you know, out of nowhere. All of that is admissible in the directions in which you've been manifesting anyway. So maybe not necessarily something completely left field. It's like, hey, I didn't ask for this, or maybe you forgot, I don't know. But especially checking those boxes of things that you have, it's like, oh, wow. You know, like, oh, you remembered, or you didn't forget, or you heard me, or you were listening. That type of energy when somebody brings you a gift or brings you something that you really, really wanted, or had, you know, expressed a desire for it, how it makes you feel appreciated in a really deep way. So that should be the feeling, you know, a deep, profound appreciation just for your presence, you know. I suppose that should translate, pardon me, I just had some water, or could translate across the board, you know, even if we're considering partnership in any particular way, proposition. There should be a feeling, a deep sense of appreciation for your presence whenever you're in contact with the person in question or consideration, or amongst the group of friends that you're courting, in the creative environment that you are exploring. You know, you should feel appreciated there, like your presence has value, your words, your ideas, your experiences are deeply valued. And there was another way that I saw it too. I guess that kind of stretches across the board, because whether it's a job, a creative endeavor, whatever it is, that sense of like, wow, you know, I'm valued here, or I mean something here, or I mean something to this person, should be evident. Should be evident. Yeah. And I feel like even if there is a sense of a contrary feeling, like, oh, are they just giving this to me because they want something out of me, or are they just offering me this to, you know, is it clickbait, or you know, some type of interest bait or whatever, the old bait and switch, perhaps, you know, like those nagging feelings, if they're valid, won't go away. The ones that are just like the ego flaring up to check in on your safety and security, those are the ones that usually can be soothed or coaxed back into something reasonable, you know, a reasonable outlook, a reasonable perspective. But when you just can't shake that nagging feeling that, I don't feel quite comfortable here, or I feel like there's something underlining that hasn't been shared, or I'm not getting all the details, or the fine print might be something else, you know, like it'll keep on showing itself or keep on nagging you internally before it ultimately will let up. You know, it won't let up until you acknowledge it, or you can continue to suppress it. It'll still be present in some way, shape, or form, maybe a little more quiet or a little less aggressive, but it'll always be there. And that is the alert, I would say, to consider what might I be missing, or what it has yet to be revealed, and I ultimately pray in that revelation so you can be clear about where you are. And especially given this full moon that we had in Cancer, there's a deafening, is that the right word? Like, of your emotional intelligence. You should have had at least a good wave of something deep, a deep sensitivity to stimuli in your environment, people, places, things, even thoughts, that would make you way more alert to the unseen, perhaps, than you ever are, if that's not your wheelhouse, you know. But certainly the full moon was like how I was saying at the end of 2025, like sometimes we put this pressure on ourselves. I may have said that in the last message, I can't remember, to start off January 1st in the new you, new me type of energy that is almost unrealistic in a lot of ways, which is why a lot of people start strong and then burn out. But there's something about this first quarter that's more or less like a grace period to allow you to really stretch into a new expression of yourself that's been underway for years now, honestly, maybe even locked away for years now. But that Cancer moon, full moon, was almost like, you know, helping you clear out anything that might be lingering still, as an objection to your true identity, let's say. I like that even better, your true identity, where it kind of caused a bit of like a disruption in your emotional ease at the top of this new year, like some uneasiness, some like a bit of a thorn in the side at times to consider, like, where is this coming from? Why do I feel this way? What is this connected to? And then to, you know, react and respond accordingly. In some ways, as I said, it's been a matter of releasing and dispelling maybe some outdated perspectives and emotions. And maybe in other ways, it's accepting. You know, there was a deep acceptance that was invited to start the year off with a truly clean slate, where you're not actively trying to fight or administer anything in particular, but just, you know, cleansing the palate more or less to express oneself as authentically as possible, you know, as lightheartedly as possible. So anyway, I don't know. Let's see what else we got. Okay? All right, okay. Temperance in the Page of Cups here. I just heard new to this and true to this. So there's a certain nuance to what's about to be experienced in the physical form when we're talking about this love bombing energy and all these amazing things coming in. It's going to feel strange and new to the physical senses. However, I feel like the true to this aspect is that it ultimately will spark some, let's say, emotional muscle memory once there is like a full immersion. Once there's a full immersion with this flow, whatever it is, however it begins to, you know, however it begins to be administered or administer itself. It's like it's going to be new at first, like a new contact, but then suddenly it'll be like you're like a fish in water, you know, like suddenly you may not realize how adaptable you actually are to bliss and to happiness and peace and tranquility and non-toxic life experiences. You know, like it's some part of it, it's like releasing the aspect of ourselves or the version of ourselves that found some level of comfort in trauma and toxicity, and if not comfort, that at least began to just accept it as par for the course of life. I feel like there is the biggest transformation that is underway is between that old way of being and the new one, where there's you become almost spoiled with goodness, you know, to the point where you begin to have an expectation, like it deconditions you from expecting the worst to, you know, really not expecting anything less but the best after a while, where it just makes sense that you would be satisfied, that you would be pleased, that you would be happy with an outcome or with a result, with a connection, with an adventure, a discovery, something new, you know, a new experience even. It's almost like built-in satisfaction to, well, not to aligned, to those that are in alignment for it, I should say. I was going to say, you know, like built into, you know, like a default of your life experience. But of course, everybody's not having that experience, at least not right away or all at once. But for those that are, yeah, I feel like it's a very short transition from it being like a jolt to the senses and almost a bit overwhelming, like I said, like thrown into the deep end of the pool or out into the deep of the ocean. And at first you're like flailing a little bit, like, whoo, you know, it doesn't feel good that your feet are not touching the bottom, you know, and you don't have a life jacket, and maybe you don't even know how to swim all that well. You know, there's so many insecurities out there in this fashion that we're talking about. But when you're talking about flailing and good things, it seems like it's a good problem to have, but when your instinct is to fight, or that fight or flight mode, especially when it comes to water, that can be the very thing to take you under, is when you're struggling and flailing against the current or against the flow that you're immersed by. So it can work the same way in a material sense, but certainly by way of this transmission of sensibility and security and stability and contentment. Fulfillment is the transmission. And at first it's like looking at that fish in the cup like, what is this? I'm actually happy. I'm not lacking anything. I'm not yearning for anything in this moment. I feel content with where I am, with what I have, with what I'm doing. I'm still even looking forward to what's more, even though it's like, shoot, I don't even really need any more. But it's like, that's a new normal that's going to take some adjustments, some levels to be adjusted from the frequencies, the really muddled frequencies that we've been managing up until now, where it's like you prepare for the worst, but of course you have a short moment of celebration for those surprise elements of what you prepare for, but not long until you start buckling down, preparing for what could come next or what could happen next. Like that vicious cycle is something about that's being overturned, and it's like being flushed out, almost like an oil change, so that we're not running on that old murky fuel anymore, but it's something, premium that nobody really can say they've had the privilege to experience in totality. Not in a way that truly comes from a divine source. Like many have managed to kind of like create their own synthetic substitute for that, in faith and optimism and gratitude. And it's not synthetic in nature, but in terms of it not being the ultimate fulfillment, of whatever, a desired outcome might be, but the faith to believe that there's still time, or there's still potential, or probability, can be fulfilling in its own way. The gratitude for what you have in the meantime is certainly fulfilling in its own way. But ain't nothing like literally looking around and feeling accomplished and assured of your presence in real time, where it's not like, yeah, this is real good for now, but I can't wait until X, Y, and Z, or this is beautiful, I'm so grateful for this, but man, imagine how it's going to be when ... It's like having that ... culmination all in one present moment. And as I said, it not being a dispensation of a trickle here, a trickle there, but it's like everything pouring in at once. And there's like divine intervention here in a way, like supreme force that's helping to manage all of that so that you don't get overwhelmed. Like, okay, don't worry. I know it feels like a lot. Well, this is what we're going to do with this right here. And then we're going to put this to the side for another day or another season. And then we're going to work with this aspect, this right here. And that's going to roll into this. And it's like, left to your own devices, you would probably just like just pass out from the overwhelm. Like, oh my God, too blessing overload type of energy. But there's a fail safe that has been um, that's been locked in to this transmission. A life jacket, if you will. Interesting. All right, let's see. An inner tube. That's what it looks like he has on his head in the Page of Cups, like a little tube around his head. And also sometimes it looks like if you look at it, it almost looks like a whale is kind of open, like holding his head in his mouth, like it could just close it up. So that to me is just signifying like how massive of a transmission this is, whatever it is, whether it's by favor, fortune, privilege, opportunity, connection, proposition, upgrade, promotion, change of scenery, network, even spiritual gifts, could be transmitting. Also, definitely strong on that, as a matter of fact, with Temperance and Page of Cups, like just to help you manage some new ability or some new sensitivity in the spirit, maybe even your psychic capabilities amping up, and you being able to hear or sense in a way that you haven't before, and that can feel overwhelming, when you just used to living life on a certain decimal, and then all of a sudden it's like you're hearing stuff from miles away, lifetimes away, dimensions away, like whatever it is, it's an adjustment. It's an adjustment. But as I said, with this Temperance and Page of Cups, I feel something very nurturing here. Like there are no wrong answers per se. Like you would be expected to have an adjustment period with whatever this is. So therefore, there's no need to be anything less than graceful with yourself as you are, transitioning. Especially if we're talking about using gifts or just even accepting spiritual gifts or sensitivities. Sometimes you can respond to that in so many different ways because it can be scary at first or anxiety inducing, and then it can to not express it, but then you can start to feel anxiety about not sharing and what damage or detriment that could cause too. So just some might have healing gifts, and when you carry such a strong mantle such as that, it can feel so much bigger than you, to the point where it's like, well, how do I get to decide who gets to partake or benefit of something that you obviously didn't necessarily give to yourself. You know what I mean? So there's a certain pressure that can come along with powers and authorities that are assumed in the spirit, and there's a certain connected accountability and responsibility in the physical. But again, just take your time and consult your supreme, and that as I was saying before, like that moment of discernment isn't limited to just how you manage yourself, but especially when others are involved, to consider like, is this something I should be involved in? Is this something I should invest my time in? Especially if you have healing gifts or divine gifts that more or less have an expectation to be shared, you need to be especially discerning, because everyone that is in need of what you have to offer isn't necessarily assigned to receive it through you. So that's important. That's part of the maturation process. But a lot of that also has been weeded out again through past seasons, even up until now, the very top of this year with this full moon in Cancer, where that Cancer energy naturally wants to nurture, wants to mend, wants to coddle, wants to protect. You know, it's that mothering frequency. As a matter of fact, makes perfect sense with what I'm talking about here, veering more into the mystical aspect of gifts and things, because it's a special aspect of you that requires it's a delicate aspect of you that requires intentional management. You know, it just does. And a lot of times that's not something that can be how you feel about certain things by way of, you know, the Cancer energy may not translate practically outside of you, but however you feel convicted to respond to that feeling and act upon it may be a matter of your own protection, you know, and your own well-being. So that's the first stop, first and foremost. Even amongst those that may present themselves to be in need or at the mercy of or beholden to, that, you know, your first mind would want to help without a thought. Now there's a deeper consideration that has to be made for how that exchange may also have residual effects, whether it be on you directly or on whomever it is, you know, that's the beneficiary. So basically, if you have somebody come across you that is looking for some type of relief or healing, or let's say like an exorcism or something of the sort. Well, I'll say relief and healing first, because an exorcism is on another level. From something maybe even physical, or maybe emotional, whatever. And you may have some type of remedy or, you know, some type of elixir of sorts to help them, whether it be in spirit or in truth. What happens when someone is really not in a pure position to receive healing for the purposes of continuing on in a high frequency or in a high vibrational way with their healing? Then pretty much you just juiced up somebody to just get activated into what they were, into everything that was wrong in the first place. You just gave them more power, you know, to get into it, to get active. So that's why it's like you just got to be, and it's a little bit of everything roaming around right now, where there's some that really are just actively seeking healing and the way, and even the way to heal themselves. And then there are others that are just looking to siphon vitality wherever they can, especially if it seems to be a supreme source. And they don't really have a lot of interest in recycling that energy back into creation. It's just a vacuum and absorption effect. So, I don't know. I just heard that too, like, because it's really no need to even I feel slightly corrected. You still need to be alert, but there's also no need to necessarily be fearful of being misled or giving your power or energy to something that's not well-meaning, because ultimately that act in itself is self-destructive. You know, like receiving energy or some type of exchange under false pretenses is like an immediate cause for condemnation that has consequences. So even with the idea of there being a consideration of, you know, protecting yourself, there still, again, is like a fail safe that's been embedded, you know, in the realm now where you you can't really do the harm that you used to be able to do collectively or outside of yourself. If anything, it'll have, you know, a personal effect before anything else. And eventually, you know, the reconditioning process of that is that if you just keep hurting yourself, eventually you would hopefully want to figure out a way to avoid doing that, or ultimately eliminate yourself by way of the relentlessness to hurt yourself. You know, for those that are exceptionally hard-headed and insist on, you know, continuing on, you know, persistent in the way of insanity, pretty much. It only has a direct impact on whomever the originator of that energy is. Yeah, with the Nine of Cups here, there it is. Like, one way or another, you're going to get back everything that you invest. But of course, this is a very upright expression of fulfillment, yet again, multiplied and accelerated, I would say. So as I stated before, it's like going from being new to this to true to this. That's the quick transition, you know, where first it's like, what is this in this cup? You know, you never had this flavor of life before, to, oh, this is all we have top shelf. You know, this is all we have in stock, nothing less. Nothing but the best type energy. I love that. Ooh, come through. We had I saw the Magician first. The Magician and the Four of Wands. So now it's pretty much shaping out to be something that takes on a life of its own, is what I'm getting. Like, the things that have been manifested and cultivated from a spiritual essence first into a physical one have built the foundation for establishments of blissfulness, of happiness, establishments of, that's another word that I want. Let me see. Fulfillment, satisfaction. There's something more fantastic. Let's say fulfillment first. All right, we got contentment, achievement. Let's see, what's the contentment? Pleasure, serenity is here under contentment. Peace is also here. I mean, I suppose that I'm trying to find a stronger word for something that is so simple as where we started, which is just peace, comfort. Yeah, definitely the comfort piece. The comfort piece. It's like somebody has managed to literally create, first of all, become the embodiment of peace and contentment. And now it's the only thing, it's what permeates every space that they encounter, whether it's their own home, business establishments, social collaborations or associations, partnerships of any sort, their physical family, their beliefs, and their moral ethics and standards in life is what I'm getting from this Four of Wands. It's like not just, it's like somebody really winning in life is what I'm getting. Like somebody really, really, that's what this is. Somebody winning at life, like every aspect of their life. Didn't I say that? The love bombing aspect, where I said it's like everything is so good that you have to condition yourself to, like to that level of sensitivity. For some, it may feel like the first time, but maybe all over again if it's not. Certainly a first time in this life, breath of life, where, but as I said, like there could be some type of emotional memory that is invoked once you really get, immersed. But it's like so much goodness that you don't have any particular way or aspect of your life to reflect on or observe that brings you any discontentment. Like everything is straight. Everything. Lacking nothing, desiring nothing in particular that can't be obtained or attracted or created, or like, can you imagine? And that is the way of life, not just for you, but for whomever is even in association with you, especially your closest family and friends. But anybody that may even become acquainted with you somehow becomes a beneficiary. Like that's how life-changing this energy of contentment and peace is, where it's like people finding their lives being blessed just by association. Damn, I love that. Let me get one more. I know, oh, it's not too bad. I just feel like I'm channeling so slow. Fulfillment is definitely a word on here, like fulfillment, satisfaction, gratification, pleasure, serenity, contentedness, ease, equanimity, gladness, peace. What's eudaimonia? Eudaimonia. As in happiness resulting from reason. Well-being. And And the cards have been so quiet, you know, like how I had to shuffle so many times in the beginning. It's like something about even how I'm conveying this transmission is almost like a whisper, like a secret or something. And maybe that's the intention that one might want to have, that one might have in order to protect, like almost protect their peace. I'm just getting that the level of protection that needs to be administered for this is going to have to be an internal one. You know, a grounding internally to know, like, I'm good, I'm safe, no one can harm me, my creations, my family, my finances, like just knowing internally that you're straight, because to have this level of privilege and fortune, it's giving, as I said before, like more than what anyone has, than some have ever had to manage all on their own. So to me, it says that there's only but so much you could probably hide this level of good fortune. There's only but so much, unless you go in complete stealth and incognito mode where, you know, you just don't look like none of your blessings, you know, like you know, like you dress in old tattered clothes and your hair is always pulled back in a tight ponytail or a bun or a braid or whatever, and maybe nobody knows where you live, or you drive a old beat up car, you know, like you're intentionally trying to throw folks off the scent in some way, shape, or form. But then that part of it also wouldn't be to the glory of the Most High either, which ultimately puts you at, you know, in a position of display. As I said before, like for people to be blessed by proximity to you, and certainly by visibility, you know, by witnessing what great favor you may be experiencing in your life, is such a contrast to what the popular perspective of life experience may be at this time, that I think that's the part of it that is going to be most impressionable, because some part of it like doesn't really even make sense, you know. So it again, it takes on a life of its own in an interesting way, and draws in fascination and engagement for those to want to know, like, how is it that you're having such a different experience than what seems to be the norm, you know? So all that to say is like, as much as maybe for safety reasons, or even just to initially, as I said before, like stretch into this new way of life, get acquainted with it, get comfortable, start to learn what the new normal of balance and security and things like that even look like for you at a certain level. There also is the importance of visibility, you know, and not necessarily broadcasting your experience, but not hiding it under a rock, you know, or a light under a basket, as it says in the scripture, because then how else shall you testify of the goodness of God? You know, how else can your life be a testimony? So yeah, so anyway, so there's that, where you may want to hide, but it may not work out for you for very long anyway. So just cultivate that strength and security internally to know that. And another way to do that is by, you know, maintaining your own personal integrity. You know, that's your sense of security and your refuge as well. So you can't really go too wrong with those two security measures, and at least with that one security measure in place, and then just being alert and aware. But you kind of have to be you kind of get to be a poster child on this one. It kind of comes with the territory. Yep. You kind of have to share your testimony. Try to get one more. It'll be much sweeter when you do anyway. What was that? Oh, the High Priestess. And the Wheel of Fortune. My God. My God. The High Priestess to the Wheel of Fortune. And with the High Priestess popping in and popping out, it's like you have the built-in discernment, and I would even say like prophetic insight to know what is to be shared and when and how and with whom and how much, and you know what level of access you opt to give others to your life. But as I said, with the Wheel of Fortune, it's kind of like part of the package. It's part of the package still. That you become exalted, you know, by way, well, you become exalted by way of the course of choices. Well, by way of the choices that ultimately chartered the course of your life path. And with that great favor and great privilege comes the responsibility of living out loud. Now, it may not necessarily be someone that is in social media or famous or impresses large groups of collectives of people, but it just means that however you are established to be a beacon of light, you know, to be an example of infinite possibilities in the flesh, is reasonable, like a reasonable service. Almost something that, you know, you probably should be well contented, well pleased to advocate for, you know, not just because of the divine testimony that you have to share that, you know, is the direct reflection of your real life experience, but also in the ways that you could help impart that to others and ultimately bring the Wheel of Fortune full circle, you know, slowly but surely for all in their own capacity. And you get a Wheel of Fortune, and you get a Wheel of Fortune, and you get a Wheel of Fortune. You know, like you get a house, you get a car, you get fame, you get fortune, you get influence, you get creativity, you get success, you get peace, healing, contentment, tranquility, achievement, notoriety, security, self-esteem. So many things here to obtain and to achieve, and it's all ultimately fated to be so. Like it's destined and fated for someone to be in the alignment that they are in now. So it's like when people see you in this, you know, explosion of love bombing, you know, this like, I don't know what you call it, like this heavy love bombing energy where you just can't seem to miss, or everything seems to just be flowing in a really fantastic way. They'll know that it's not just a stroke of luck, you know, that there are a series of intentional choices and decisions that can be made to put you in that direct line of fire as well, if in fact you're not experiencing it, or to help you to recognize the fact that you are. That's exactly where you're aligning yourself to, in the line of fire with the biggest atomic love bomb known to man by way of the Wheel of Fortune. Like all of the gifts and like everything wrapped up into that one card that has been assigned to your name one way or another, by your bloodline, by, again, your choices, your decisions, your agreements, your contracts, your this, your that. Like ultimately it's still coming back around to a present moment in time where everything that was written to be associated with your existence is now being released. And that's just not a moment that anybody can properly prepare for, because I'm not really sure that anyone up until more recent seasons, and I don't even know if yet, honestly, has ever truly experienced that, like the outpouring of heaven onto your life. I think the testimonies that are about to pop up or that are popping up are just like the tip of the iceberg. And to the point where I see that it may, that's probably why I was saying, like, you would want to hide it, but you probably really can't, because this level of goodness and greatness at your fingertips, I can understand why it would maybe cause one to go into hermit mode, like, man, I ain't fooling with you. I'm gonna live my best life in private and do the best that I can, however I can, where I can, but I ain't messing with you folks. Because you start to be afraid that you have a target on your back. That fear could creep in legitimately. But this ain't that. Starting with the temperance, like, this is the biggest. If you got this energy in your corner in the earth, you Gucci. That's the most protection that can be established in spirit and in flesh. But I can understand the urge and the impulse to respond in that way, because people are weird and getting weirder, unfortunately, in many ways on the side of desperation. But there's a certain assignment attached to this dispensation of fortune and favor, which is why it's so heavily protected. So, again, part of that transitioning of the mind, of the spirit, of a new way of being secure in your skin is to know that. That's part of that internal security, like to know that there's too much riding on what you are carrying, what you're managing, what you are stewarding over for it to just be vulnerable to any old willy-nilly attack. And that you covet it too much anyway for that to be the case. So therefore, the only thing left to do is really just to live in it, to revel in it. Again, as that conditional part of the package, like you get to revel in the blessings that are being bestowed upon you. I mean, and if that's the one condition, the one term that is challenging, I consider that a good deal. Everything you could think of, hope for, imagine, it's coming to you too, is what I'm saying. With energies like the Magician, the Four of Wands, even the Nine of Cups, it's like this sitting pretty type of energy of just calling in, just literally magnetizing favor and fortune to your auric field. And for those that didn't realize that's what they were doing, be careful what you wish for, because it looks like it's on its way. And it's big. Three of Wands, like you already, look. Three of Wands, Three of Cups. And there's like a universal celebration is what I'm feeling for this delivery. I had one Christmas gift that was delayed. I had ordered this, and it was a little thing for my son, but he acted like it was so major, which was hilarious. But he really did want it, but it was small. It was just some fingerless gloves that he had wanted, and he didn't know that I remembered that he had wanted. But I ordered them a long time ago. They were supposed to have been in like somewhere around the 16th of December, and they were delayed on this one spot for so long. Just randomly came in the mail yesterday, which yesterday, what was the 6th or whatever? And at that point, I kind of had stopped looking for them, to be honest. And it's still, the last time I looked, it was still saying, even up until when they arrived, it was still saying that they were still delayed at one particular spot. But finally, it was like the last gift that I was waiting on, and he was probably more excited to receive them for whatever reason yesterday than he probably would have been on the actual day. So, and I mean, genuinely excited too. Like the little gifts, it's amazing, the things that they get excited for. But it's like something like that, like something that's either been highly anticipated or that was anticipated at a time that was forgotten about, or that just has been taking its time, getting to where it needs to be. But oh boy, when it breaks through, and it's also on account of I didn't call customer service. I didn't get up in arms. I ain't trip. I ain't call you the postal store, the post office, none of that. Like, it's just like, all right, well, we'll see how it gets here, if it gets here, with this great expectation that it's coming, something's coming. And then, here it is at the Three of Cups. The moment of anticipation culminates into celebration, where there's no more waiting. There's no more what ifs. There's no more how much or how so or with whom or where. Like, that, all the questions are being answered in this disbursement of fortune that is underway. Everything, there's being closure. There's bringing closure to what perhaps was open-ended at a time, or under deep consideration, or maybe just a mystery altogether. And it's busting open the gates of a new path altogether. At the same time, again, going from new to this to true to this, like in the blink of an eye. Because it won't be long until that new path that is bust wide open becomes the moment. And everything that the closure that's being celebrated in this passing of that baton exchange, or this passing over energy, transitional energy, is but a figment of the past, of the imagination, even in some ways. Like, in a minute, it won't even really matter. In a minute, it will barely be able to hang on as a memory, because all that you will be able to see or manage or conceptualize is just all the great fortune that you have at your fingertips. There won't be any time or energy to manage anything else or to consider anything else. And as I like to say, that is a great problem to have. So much fortune, I need more fingers. All right, I think I'm gonna leave it there. Yeah. Dang, there's definitely a great deal of celebration. And I feel like with the Three of Wands, it's like there's anticipation for something and eagerness for something, but what that something is, I don't think most people really have a clue how grand it's about to be. It's like anticipating something fulfilling, let's say satisfying, with the Nine of Cups. Like, oh, I know I'm gonna be happy with this. I'll be cool with this. Because after all, it does have the signatures of things that you've already manifested. It's just alchemizing themselves into the material form. But then when the divine puts this little dash on it, its little spin on it, it's little upgrade, a little extra. That's the part that nobody can be quite prepared for. That's the part that's just like built in to knock your socks off every single time. And I feel like in this season, even more extravagantly than any other before, because a lot of the resistances and the blockages from being fully immersed in that transmission of fortune are being eliminated. So there's not as much of a filter as there used to be, like like I said, just a trickling in or a big windfall, and then some things get held back or get lost in the shuffle, or you're not quite fully open to receive the totality, so therefore you don't, whatever. But this is like all systems are a go. All systems are a go. The source, the transmitter, the conductor, the conduit, the frequency itself, everything is online to ultimately achieve its most supreme potential in spirit and in truth. Where nothing needs to be held back anymore. Because you're fully ready to receive whatever this transmission is. It's fully developed to be conducted and transmitted. The path is clear, so there's not much objecting or detouring or obscuring its direction. And there's a built-in fail-safe of security that will not only continue to revitalize whomever is conducting this force of frequency and protect them, but it'll also help to magnify it, so when it does get passed on or passed forward or passed down, whatever it is, however you look at it, it's even that much more precious than it was when it was before its inception. Because those that are in alignment to be the beneficiaries of it are also stronger to receive it, wiser, more responsible, more capable, more knowledgeable, willing, and able. So it's literally just the gift that keeps on giving, because once you're cycling again that more vital, premium force fuel, it's just going to, at 12 o'clock on the dot, it's just going to continue to recycle itself, to regenerate itself to higher and higher octanes at that point. And I feel like that's the point of universal celebration, because it's what's spinning us out of this rut of cycling dirty fuel for so long has ultimately afforded us. Like a whole new make and model is about to be like fresh off the showroom floor. And that make and model is you. The likes of spirit and flesh converging in such a magnificent way that is never been seen before, never been done before, never been being before. All right, so yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. Congratulations. Now this would have been nice to get before the other day, but I guess, like I said, we had to get out the, flush out the other stuff too. And not to say that there's not more of that to come, but these are the vibes that I want to be on for 2026. Like, just tell me how amazing I am and how great I'm doing and how much I'm headed in the right direction and how promising the future is and how precious my presence is. Like, love bomb me. Yeah. Love bomb me with all the sweet nothings and everythings that my heart needs to hear. so that I can continue to perform and create in excellence and supreme excellence. Yep. All right. So yeah, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Until next time, as always, I leave you with peace.